Hello, Kel67 Gaming here, back again with another favourite 5. And we're going console specific again. However, this is the first time we're doing a favourite 5 list for a handheld. This will be my favourite 5 games for the Sega Game Gear. The Sega Game Gear was a very underrated console in my opinion. Its main competition obviously was the original Nintendo Game Boy, and surprisingly, even here in the UK or in Europe in general, the Game Boy completely dominated the Sega Game Gear. And not because it was a better big piece of kit, because quite clearly the Game Gear is a much better console with its full colour screen, which was lit as well. I mean it was front lit, so it was a bit washed out, but it was still a lit screen. It was in full colour, proper 8-bit machine. But for some reason just didn't catch on, whether that's because of the very short battery life, and you did have to put a lot of AA's into that thing, or not, I don't know. Maybe it was that it didn't get the software support. However, I'm here to prove that actually it did get the software support, because I've picked 5 games which are real standouts on the system. I think that the Game Gear actually did have a very good library of games. Obviously you're not going to get Mario or anything like that on it, but I think it was a very strong library that it had, and I'm going to take you through the 5 that I think are the best on the system. So that's enough talking for now. Let's have a look and see what I picked as my 5th favourite game on the Sega Game Gear. Well, that was Predator 2 by the excellently titled developers Teeny Weeny Software. It was published by Arena Entertainment. As you saw, it is a multi-directional shooter where the object of each level is not to shoot all the enemies, it's to rescue a certain number of hostages, which they're not very well hostaged, if that's a word, because they don't actually have anyone looking over them. They're just kind of sat on the side of the street, and but the hostages apparently. As you can tell, you don't play as a predator. You're not going up against predators per se. If anyone's watched the film, which in itself is a massively underrated film in the franchise, brilliant film, Predator 2, but you're playing as a police officer. And you're trying to break the drugs trade in Los Angeles. You will notice when you see the game there that the 3 dots, which is the Predator's targeting mechanism, do come on from time to time. That's kind of about it. It's not really about the Predators, but it's just a really good game. I'm not sure how well known the game is, because the Game Gear itself is quite a niche console. It's just one that I really like. So that's my 5th favourite game on the Game Gear. But there's more to come, obviously, and we'll go next for my 4th favourite game on the Sega Game Gear. So there we go, that is Robocop versus the Terminator. This is a film that I think has been touted for a long time, possibly led to the creation of this game back in the early 90s. We still haven't got the film, but we did get a few of the games. This particular one, I believe, is NMS software, published by Virgin Interactive Entertainment. It's, as you can see, it's a side-scrolling platform shooter where you play as Robocop, and there's a nice little bit of gore in there as well, as you take out a lot of I think the T1, was it the 101, 1000, I can't remember which one it is, the Army one. Anyway, the Terminators, you're taking out a lot of those. Surprisingly, they all take like one shot, which is a bit, that's not very Terminator-ish, but there you go. I'm guessing that franchise wouldn't have lasted very long if someone turned up with a gun in the first Terminator film and just took Arnie out in one shot. But I suppose it's a game, so you have to make allowances. You can't spend an hour on each enemy. Great game. Obviously, you've got the platforming element, you've got the shooting element. Just a great fun. Pick up and play. Obviously, this is a handheld system, so these have to be pick up, play and shot burst games, and that was definitely one of those that was very enjoyable. So that's Robocop versus the Terminator. I think it's about time we had a look at my third favourite game for the Sega Game Gear. So my third favourite game for the Sega Game Gear, again in following on from that sort of mould of pick up and play and short bursts, this is the official game of the Barcelona 92 Olympic Games. This is Olympic Gold, which was developed by Tietex Design Studios for US Gold, who were a massive publisher back in the day, certainly here in Europe, I would imagine across the world. It's just, I love these games. Ever since Daley Thompson's Decathlon, these multi-event athletic games, I've just really enjoyed them. So you had, obviously, Daley Thompson's Decathlon was brilliant, and the sequel Super Test, Hyper Sports in the arcades, Konami's Track and Field series in general, just very, very good. And this came out, this is one of the early Olympic games, perfectly suited to a handheld system. 100 metres takes about 10 seconds. Archery, you can get through that in sort of a minute and a half. You've got the hammer throw, which can be got through in 30 seconds. You've got the hurdles, which that takes a little over 10 seconds, but less than 15. So really short bursts of gaming, but just perfectly suited to the handheld, and a very good game. Graphically, for the Game Gear, I think quite impressive as well. Don't know if you agree. So that was my third favourite game. We're certainly getting through this list quickly. Let's continue to do that with my second favourite game on the Sega Game Gear. Well, surprisingly, this is the only Sega game on my list. This is Sylvan Tale, which I don't think there's any way you can dress this up. It's a bit of a Zelda clone, but a very, very good one. Obviously, The Legend of Zelda being a Nintendo first-party game did not come across to any Sega products, but Sega did release Sylvan Tale, where you do the whole dungeon crawling, exploring kind of thing. If you've played the Zelda games, I'm thinking specifically Link to the Past and that sort of thing on the Super Nintendo, you know exactly what to expect from this offering. If you haven't played it already, I strongly suggest that you try and pick it up. Excellent game, just keeps you going. Although it's a longer game, you can pick up and play it in small bursts, you know, play one dungeon at a time. The puzzle solving mechanic on it's pretty good as well. You know, you've got lots of there's the sword play, the puzzling, the adventuring, the dungeon crawl. Just a brilliant game. Yeah, that's my second favourite game on the Sega Game Gear, which means there's only one left on the list. And I don't know how many people are familiar with the system. You may be guessing what it is, but you don't have to guess any longer, because it's my favourite game on the Sega Game Gear. This one is just an outstanding game. It's Fantastic Dizzy, which was developed by the Oliver twins for Codemasters. The Oliver twins Dizzy series is legendary in the UK. Just a brilliant series that it started on the microcomputers. Obviously, the Amstrad CPC 464, which was what it was originally coded on. It was then taken on the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64, and this is the first handheld version of Dizzy, which they released on the Sega Game Gear. It's just a brilliant game. It's a puzzling platformer, so there's puzzle solving elements. You'll notice when I was playing the game there, you have to pick up certain items to do certain things, so there's like keys to open doors. I don't know if you noticed, I picked up a plank of wood. That is, you pick up the wood to make a bridge across to an otherwise inaccessible area. So there's the puzzle solving, there's the platforming, obviously there's collecting the stars and that sort of thing. I consider it to be a very British or a very European platformer. So it's not in the style of a Mario or a Sonic or something like that, which is a bit more fast paced. And Dizzy, it's not all about going forward. Because of the puzzle solving element, sometimes you have to go back where you've come from. It's not linear in that way. And that added challenge, I think, very much appealed to the UK and European market, primarily because, people talk about games being Nintendo hard. These are people who just have no idea how easy Nintendo games were compared to some of the games that came out on the microcomputers that we had in Europe during the early 80s. Games on the ZX Spectrum, the Commodore 64 and the Amstrad CPC 464. A lot of these games were absolutely brutal. They gave you absolutely no margin for error. You know, platforming games, jumps had to be pixel perfect. I mean, that added level of challenge just was what we were used to. So to see that come up on the Sega Game Gear, although it is a lot more forgiving, I have to say, on the Game Gear, much easier game, was something that very much appealed to the European region and UK in particular. That's my list. If there are people who are familiar with the system and you disagree with what I've chosen, that's excellent. Tell me what you've disagreed with. Tell me what you would have put in its place, and we'll go from there. I will read all the comments. You can't please everyone, but this is, as I've said before doing these lists, this isn't necessarily the best games or the most technologically advanced games. This is my favourite games, and everyone's favourite should be different. But let me know in the comments what you like, what you don't like, what should have been there, what shouldn't have been there, and you know, we'll go through another favourite 5 sometime soon. In the meantime, if you haven't already, please smack the like button on this video. I think, you know, I'm showing you some good games here. You should have liked it. Certainly if you made it this far through the video, you must have liked it. So hit that like button. Share the video if you know anyone who maybe had a Game Gear when they're younger and you want to give them a nudge for the nostalgia value. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I really do want to get the channel to grow. And until next time, keep gaming.